Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're taking a look at the Mysteria Unlimited Rune deck. Of course, this is one that takes advantage of the Wizard of Oz finisher. This is a deck that was recommended that I do a video on, and since we are going to be going into changes, basically today/tomorrow, I wanted to make sure that I could at least cover this deck before those big changes take place, although I don't think this is going to have a huge effect on this deck in particular, as it kind of just does its thing. Honestly, it'll probably make this a bit stronger because you won't have as many aggressive decks in the meta, as this should be for slower things, so that should be good for this deck. Honestly, I was a bit torn on it because I felt like aggro decks just absolutely destroyed this deck and made it quite difficult to get decent wins, but when this deck does go off, it does feel pretty good. So we're going to get right into it and check it out. So our first matchup is going to be against Haven. The main idea of this video is just going to be to show off the deck, I think, as, like I said, it's not very meta representative, as it's going to have a huge shift with these coming nerfs and buffs, so can't wait for those. So we're starting off with a double glow into Mysterian Grimoire, not looking too good for our opener. Really, you just want as many early game Mysteria cards as you can get, potentially ones that can draw you bigger Mysteria cards, as you really want to be boosting those and using them to your fullest advantage before you get to about turn 6 or 7, where you might be able to take advantage of Wizards of Oz. Personally, I find I usually go off about turn 8, but that's my own experience. So we're not looking at much, basically glow, just returning, drawing cards. We can't really do much against this Haven player in the early game, so we're just going to kind of draw out the early turns and try and take as much advantage as we can. So turn 4 is looking okay. We don't really have much of a play, but Knight of Mysteria is definitely a good one to get, especially when we can go straight on to Light Mage. So they are going for the Beast Call. Wish I had a glow for that, but I guess I'll be alright. It's really this Princess Snow White that's going to be a tricky one to deal with now. Tricky but not impossible at this point, at least. So Time Worn Mage is going to let me clear this, which is pretty much the best thing I can do at this point, is getting the clear on this, as I think it's going to be the best option I've got. Of course, Crimson Sorcery isn't the only option, but it was definitely the best one. So Princess Snow White's going to double trade here again, but at least they've now used 2 Snow Whites, 2 Evo points, and we're looking at a fairly decent hand for ourselves. Of course, it's still going to be close, because with these amulets going off consistently, we are going to be in a bit of trouble. But the more Mysteria cards we can get onto the board at this point, the better. Now we're just kind of focusing on draw power, which I feel like is the next best thing to do when you're running out of options. Death Sentence, that's a little rough, clearing both of my followers. So now it's just a matter of how much of this board can we take out. Considering we have an Ogler, not a lot. So we really just need to play everything we can here. I can't risk getting spells at the moment because I did play Grimoire, as that will just absolutely negate anything I really want from this hand. And again, another rough turn as they pretty much clear me out and just go face. Definitely not good when you're left with 8. The one advantage I've got is I've got a decent Mysteria hand. So now it's just a matter of clearing out as much of this as I can. Trying to defend myself from dying next turn, which, considering they need 3 damage, is going to be really difficult. But of course, Godsworn Elixir, one of the cards that is getting a buff with the coming changes. Looking forward to seeing that, but not in this matchup, as it does completely negate me trying to do massive burst damage, so a little disappointed. At least if we take things a little slower, try and clear these out as best we can, we might stand a chance. And we can actually go for both Mysterian Prodigies, as we don't really have a reason not to at this point. So looking at some decent sorceries, 14 damage each, if only we weren't being locked out here. Now going for the full clear. We have only got 2 health left though, so we're definitely in a situation that's going to be tough. At least Wizard of Oz might buy us some time. Being able to get the Mysterian Circle. So we can flood this board out. And really just hope, if they can't clear this ward, we pretty much win the game. That's really our only hope here, and it's going to be a 1 in 4 chance, and we make it just. We just scrape by. Luckily we don't see anything else from our opponent, or we would have been in trouble. Fortunately didn't get to use our Mysteria the way I would have liked, but at least we got a decent boost on them. And our next one is Shadow. First thing, Shadow is usually kind of middle ground at the moment. The coming up changes for Grimoire is going to make the deck kind of more average overall again, as you are just going to compete for the Ektar slot on turn 7, and really that's about it. So not really much in this hand I can use in the early game. Lu's going to be probably our best play, but we did get Knight of Mysteria. That's a really nice one to get on to. Fortunately we didn't draw a Mysteria card that we could actually take advantage of, so that one's just slightly disappointing. But really you're just digging for any of those big Mysteria cards, so 6 and 9 drop. Getting the 6 drop in this hand did help us out, allowing us to start boosting it early. The only real name you can go is probably Mysteria boost. And from here it's just going to be a matter of dealing with Shadow over and over again until we get to our finishes. And again, getting Anne, perfect. Couldn't ask for a better Mysteria card there. I'm taking advantage of our Evo to drop Piercing Runes costs, so Ogla can be even cheaper later on. Plus we get to clean up this board pretty nicely. Fran Monster Girl, not really a problem. Especially when they're using an Evo on it. Definitely going to cost them. Now we just need to wipe this out. I'm using Wizard of Mysteria, should be enough. So both our Light Mage and our Mysterian Prodigy going to do a wonderful job. All we're really missing now is the Wizard of Oz to really take advantage of the spells that they're going to produce. These zombies though are a little rough, as they've got pretty decent stats, and board flood isn't something this deck does a wonderful job of dealing with. Usually it's targeting 1 or 2 things at a time, not really hitting 3 or more, so definitely a tricky one. Luckily for us, we didn't see any big turn 7 play. We would have been in some trouble. Demon Eater's pretty standard, so they're definitely digging for some better cards. But they've definitely got a pretty nuts board now, so we need to clear as much of this as we can next turn. Kaleidoscopic Glow gives us a pretty decent option. And now we can take full advantage of our hand, since we do have a Wizard's Oz. All it's a matter of now is clearing out everything we can and spell boosting everything else. Getting that sorcery set up, and leaving them with very few cards they can take full advantage of. Plus the Evo on Light Mage will give us the Mysterian Right, which is going to be even better once that is also dropped down to 1. That's if we decide to use it in that way. So we can't quite go for lethal yet, as this isn't quite far enough. We can't quite get it there. So we are going to just play as many Mysterian cards as we can this turn. Set ourselves up as much as possible. And take full advantage of these rights. This puts us pretty much right within lethal range now. All we need to do is play our Anne Sorcery and we win the game. They probably don't expect that on turn 9, especially since Wizardess, but they did go for the concede, obviously realizing they probably weren't going to make it through that. So this deck is definitely one that I feel will benefit from the upcoming changes, as it's definitely on the slower side of decks. I have found that it can be quite clunky and difficult to use at times, but the more you play it, the more used to the cards and what you want you get, so that's always a good advantage to have. The biggest finishes, of course, being the Anne and Wizard of Oz, which someone really wanted to see, so here it is. If you guys did enjoy the video, you can find the deck list in the description below. Hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Until next time, see ya.